All right, now let's begin.
Welcome to Big Brother Basics, where we break down the basics of Big Brother Basics.
That's it.
My name is Jacob Harple, and joining me are the other co-hosts, Keith Guerrero, Aaron Nunley, and Joe Gonzalez. How's everyone doing?
Very well. Thank you so much for having us. It really means a lot. It's been a while.
It really has.
I'm really called out by Corinne.
It's exciting. I'm very excited to be here.
So we have started the first season of Big Brother Basics. We've got 12 house guests battling it out to be the most basic of them all. So Joe, how do you feel about the overall cast for the inaugural season of Big Brother Basics?
I was really happy to see that the cast is 12. Like, it makes it very, solid. Lines are going to be drawn pretty quickly. There's no one to hide behind. The cast is very diverse in terms of age range as well as personality type. So I'm really excited to see how these house guests interact with one another.
Definitely. Keith, anyone from the first night that really grabbed your attention from this cast?
Well, Jamila is obviously one of those characters that stands out to me. I wasn't sure how much she was going to put into this game. We go way back in middle school, but she is going balls to the wall. I absolutely love seeing her play. So I'm excited to see what else she can do.
Definitely. So a lot of stuff happened during the period before the first HOH. We had our first alliance formed, a 5-person alliance called the Outsiders. Aaron, can you tell me what your reaction was to seeing an alliance formed so early?
It wasn't really positive, to be honest, Jacob. I'm not really a big fan of the Outsiders Alliance because they made themselves the Outsiders. No one else knows that they're the Outsiders except for the Outsiders. So how can you be Outsiders if you made yourself those Outsiders? But within the Outsiders, there are people that I like. I do like Matus. Just pronounce Matus, not anything else. I do sometimes like Simon. He goes like good and bad for me. So Kyle H. is kind of okay. Don't really care for Sherlock, but maybe that'll change in the future.
I gotta give it to Sherlock. He is typically the type of person that creates these alliances, and he was not the person that started it. So it's interesting to see him in this position and then what happened later on in the week. So.
Mm-hmm. Joe, what are the pros and cons of creating an alliance before the first HOH? Do you think it was a bad decision, a good decision?
I think it's a terrible idea when you don't know who's in power, because if that alliance is slipped, your alliance is fucked. Mm-hmm. And I guess the Outsiders are lucky that it didn't happen.
Yeah. They're
very lucky that it didn't happen. The only pro to having an alliance that early is that you're creating bonds already, so that's good. If all these people happen to make it to jury phase, they're probably going to like you.
So yeah, unfortunately, the Outsiders, although having, almost half of, I guess, a 50-50 chance in the HOH, were unable to claim that first HOH, and Nick won. Keith, what was your reaction to Nick winning that first HOH? Were you happy, nervous?
Beautiful. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful, because the final four was Nick, Kyle S., Marie, and Simon. And Marie, I don't like you. I'm sorry to say it, but you're really, really hard to root for, and you're probably one of the main reasons why I'm not rooting for the Outsiders Alliance.
I didn't even get to Marie in my own spiel.
I was wondering if you were going to. But when it was down to Marie and Simon representing the Outsiders Alliance, I was like, oh God, I cannot handle either one of them winning HOH. And I really just think the Outsiders needed a humility check. So the fact that somebody outside of the Outsiders won the first HOH, I was like, thank the good Lord, because y'all were acting like your shit smells like roses. And it really doesn't. So
I thought that was kind of ignorant of them.
Yeah, we should insert a montage here of just ignorant, the ignorant comments. But the fact that Nick won HOH, it was great. Nick wasn't really that active because we did start the game on Thursday and the HOH competition didn't happen until Sunday. There was that time in between. And Nick was kind of not there as much as other people. So people didn't know where he stood on both sides of the house. It was a very interesting dynamic, and I was glad that Nick, somebody in the middle, won HOH. And it was also very eye-opening to people that were kind of on the other extreme of the Outsiders. So the Toms, the Brandons, the Jamilas, their eyes are all open now this set the tone. They were put in pretty early, and for being that social early on, you would typically not be put in that early in a type of like elimination type of competition. So they all are like, okay, the game started, like we got put in a lot, like we have a lot to talk about, and so it was really, really interesting first HOH, despite it being a luck-based competition.
So Nick goes ahead and nominates Matthew and Kyle H for nomination. What did you think about these nominations, Joe? Do you think it was a safe play?
I think a lot of people expected Matthew to be one of the nominees just because he can kind of not come across as the most socially aware person. So that was an easy nom, I think, for Nick. I don't know if Kyle H was a good nomination for him. Granted, the whole house wanted him to put up Chris, but obviously they have that, secret relationship. Secret. And so,
We knew.
Secret.
By the way, Nick, we knew.
We knew.
Nick.
So we all try to like enter your diary rooms, like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm really nervous if Nick's gonna nominate me. Shut up,
You're
Chris.
not fooling-
You're
you're not
not
fooling
nervous.
anybody.
You're not
You're just
nervous.
playing Jake. Keep on trying.
We are not basic here.
But I think they were safe nominations for him for that first round. If I were him, I probably would have done Marie, just because she's also not as active.
But the perception from the house of Marie is totally different than what
Yeah,
we see.
it's
So
true.
like
It's
Marie's a soft-spoken, very sweet person inside the house, but outside the house, we just see this
The
kind of like
ugliness.
the really ugly
The
side of
ugliness.
Marie that is hard to root for.
So, Aaron, I want to talk a little bit about Kyle H because as soon as he kind of knew he was going on the block, we saw him go to work
Spike.
with the Outsiders Alliance. So, tell me what your reaction was to seeing Kyle H this week.
It was definitely a roller coaster. The moment he got nominated, the moment he found out that he was going to be nominated, it was negative city. Like, he was so defeated, and like he kind of attacked Matthew too. And when he was telling Matthew that you're going on the block, it was kind of like they were fighting. He was already ready to throw Matus under the bus for the replacement nominee if one of them to win HOH. Like, Kyle definitely was a mess the night that he found out he was getting nominated. And then you cut to the next day where he's like, all right, like, I'm here to play. I need to win veto. Like, it was totally 180. And I like that Kyle. I don't like the other Kyle. The other Kyle was like,
He had a meltdown.
Yeah,
he had a
yeah.
meltdown.
I think he was nominated. If you're nominated week one, I think I'd be pretty upset too, and I'd try to figure out what the hell did I do wrong? How can I fix it?
yeah,
Like, what's going
but that
on?
was his alliance that he was talking to, that he was being negative, that he was already trying to throw them under the bus. That's
And
the
that
other
makes you
part
think,
of it.
if you're already ready to throw your alliance under
Week
the bus
one.
week one, are these people you want to work with the whole game?
Yeah.
Especially if now they know that you're willing to throw them under the
Yeah.
bus?
Keith, are you surprised that we had 2 outsider nominations and we went the whole week without the alliance being blown up? Was that a shock to you?
Yeah, I thought that people were just going to,
Matthew was
expose
supposed to
things.
do
I
it.
thought Matthew would be
I
the
thought
one.
Matthew- you were supposed to do it.
expose it.
You were the chosen one.
But overall, I thought that it just shows that you're not supposed to create an alliance week one, like before the HOH competition, because it shows how weak it is. Like the foundation isn't there, so it's going to fall down if somebody inside the alliance doesn't win, and that's exactly what happened. And so none of them. I was there. I'm part of their group chat. They weren't talking to each other when like the 2 nominees were both outsiders people. So you could just see that alliance was definitely something that was put together kind of like haphazardly, and but it's a convenient alliance, and if it can work, then it's definitely in their favor because there's only 12 people and there's 5 people in that group.
So Kyle H goes ahead and wins the POV. Joe, what was your reaction to that? Was there someone that you thought was definitely going to go up as a replacement? Were you surprised to see Max go up?
I wasn't surprised to see Max go up because I felt that he wasn't around enough, so obviously he didn't have that relationship with Nick, so that was an easy thing for Nick to do. Nick's concern, I guess, in that regard was that people were still pushing for Chris to go up. And when Chris didn't go up again, those flags are coming up like, what's going on? Then Matt does his research, and it's
You didn't have to do
public
that much
knowledge.
research either.
It's true, it was pretty easy. But
Well, that brings a good question, Aaron. If you're Nick and you have someone that you're close to within the game, but it doesn't seem like he's making the social connections with everyone else, when do you draw the line? Like, when do you
As
make
soon
that
as-
decision
As
to
soon
put
as
them up?
someone is like, as soon as I feel threatened by someone else or a group of people to my game, Chris is going on the block. Like, you both can't win this game. And if Chris is not trying as hard as you are, like, why risk everything for Chris and still get the boot with Chris. Like, they could definitely both get, 11th and 10th place.
Do you think that this relationship will be the downfall of Nick?
Yes.
I hope not. Like, I can see it, like, I would like it if Chris were to get the boot this week, and then, like, Nick would be okay. Like, Simon's already said, and he's DR, like, he'd be okay with Nick and Chris nomination, and then he would want to see Chris go because he's closer to Nick. Like, I could see that with a lot of people, just, like, get rid of Chris, and then that problem's not there. Like, yeah, we'll lose a little bit of trust because you didn't tell us in the first hand, but I don't think it could kill him. But if he is sitting on the block next to Chris, there's still that chance that he could vote beside Chris. He's more strong.
So Matthew, I guess in kind of a Hail Mary, told Kyle S. about the relationship between Nick and Chris, and I think that was kind of the momentum starter for Kyle S. to go around and basically gather votes for Max. What did you think about this interaction between Matthew and Kyle S., Keith, and do you think the move was still to evict Max at that point?
The thing that's like so interesting is that from Kyle S. and Jamila's standpoint, they equated Max's eviction to getting something that Nick doesn't want to happen, when Max really has nothing to do with Nick and Chris's relationship. So they might have in turn hurt their game because Jamila was part of an alliance with Max. There was Tom, Brandon, Jamila, and Max. But she heard about Nick's secret relationship with Chris. She became threatened by that, and so she's saying, you know what? You wanted Matthew gone? I want Matthew to remain here because he's a target, and he's going to gun for you and your pregame homeboy. I'm going to send home one of my own alliance members. That's also a tricky thing because you're also like making questionable decisions for people that you were in a group with week one. So you might lose trust in Tom, you might lose trust in Brandon, and it's all over a Max eviction. Like, think about that. Like, is Max being evicted really helping your game, and is it putting your game in a good position in the future? And I think Jamila might have made a mistake.
And when you say that, the vote ended up, what was the vote?
6-2.
6-2. The two votes being Tom and
Chris.
So now Tom is like, well, why did this happen? What's going on?
Well, I mean, he knew, and he stuck to his guns. It's like, I'm not going to let people
Dictate his
my
vote.
vote.
But here's another thing, because like Marie didn't show up to vote, so they had a chance to tie it. So it could have been Jamila, Tom, Brandon, and Chris to vote out Matthew, and it would have been a 4-4 vote, and Nick would have been the person to get rid of Matthew. But Jamila and Kyle S., they were sticking to their guns and wanting to get rid of Max, and in turn, I think they hurt their game a lot. I think it was an overplay for both of them. It's completely unnecessary, because Brandon said it the best inside his DR. He was like, so for such a laissez, like, blah, like, nominations, apparently people really care. Like, who goes home? Like, it's either going to be Max or it's Matthew. Like, nobody should care, but for some reason people care. So I just think that whole thing was interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think Tom is going to be a little bit in trouble for sticking to his guns on the vote, or do you think that's going to be something that's kind of brushed under the rug?
I think it's going under the rug. There are too many like targets and distractions for Tom's vote to distract anybody from anything else. And you've got the Nick and Chris, you've got Jamila, you've got Simon and Marie. Like, there's all these people running around causing targets on themselves, and all he did was vote where he wanted to. So I don't think he could get in trouble for that.
Yeah. So with Matus as the next HOH, who do we think is in the most trouble? Is it kind of set in stone that probably Nick or Chris is leaving this week? Joe, what do you think?
I think unless there's a major like revelation, that's almost 100% is going to happen. And I think that's the safest noms for Matus. I think he's smart enough to realize that that's the easiest thing for him to do without getting, blood or any real, I guess, spillover from any of the other house guests. The outsiders will be happy with that. The other people will be happy with that. It's fine. So I think that's what should happen and what is likely to happen.
Okay. Sorry. I'm just wondering, because I don't know from Matus's standpoint what Matus is going to do. I'm pretty sure Chris is definite for going on the block, but I'm not so sure about Nick. Because Matus and Nick had those week one deals, like, I don't nominate you, you don't nominate me. And they've had a talk since where Matus has made it seem as if he's not going to nominate Nick. he couldn't say the same thing for Chris, but he inferred that Nick would be okay. But I haven't seen a DR since from Matus, so I actually don't know what his actual thoughts are.
Well, if Matus does stick with that, Keith, who do you think is more likely to be sitting on the block next to Chris?
If Nick doesn't go on the block?
If Nick does not go on the block and it's Chris and someone else, who do you think will be in the second chair?
I haven't really thought about that because I really do think it's going to be Nick and Chris.
Really?
I do. I don't see Nick avoiding the nomination chair because I heard already that word got back to Matus from Chris why Chris is being targeted from Matus, and the only person that Matus told that to was Nick. So Nick is having loose lips with his pregame relationship, Chris, when really he should be cutting ties with him immediately as soon as he got discovered. And also, whenever you have a pregame relationship and you want to hide it, you have to make sure all your bases are covered, or you just own up to it. You have to do one or the other. Like, Nick leaving that profile picture, like, as the second profile picture with Chris, didn't make sense to me. It was like he kind of wanted to get discovered. And he's like, well, maybe, this will be a more honest way of playing the game if I leave it the profile picture. No, like, if you're going to hide your pregame relationship, cover all your bases, all your social media uses, or just own up to it. And the fact that he did neither, people are not good with gray areas, so they're just like, you can't be trusted.
Chris was all over Instagram, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
This is also going to be an interesting week because it's a double eviction, so the house guys don't know it for sure, but it's going to be the last two Bree jurors that will be decided this week. Joe, how do you think that's going to affect the week? Do you think people knowing that it's a double eviction is going to change how things play out?
If it depends on how veto goes, but this week if the veto is used on either Nick or Chris, I could see some shady stuff going down where we'll have some possible pre-jurors of maybe Tom or Jamila.
Jamila for sure.
Like, I think those are the two people that are possibly in the most danger outside of the Outsiders Alliance. With Matus in power, he may not want to do that stuff, but he could feel some pressure from his alliance mates if the veto's used. And for a fast forward week, I mean, hold on to your tail.
So we were all kind of surprised this week because we kind of assumed once Matthew and Kyle H went on the blocks that it was more than likely going to be an outsider leaving week one. They were able to work out of it though, and all 5 members have stayed intact. Aaron, do you now think that the outsiders have kind of been thrusted into a powerful position and that this is an alliance that could have a chance of doing very, very well in the game?
Unfortunately, yes. I do feel like they're going to be around for a while. I'm really counting on Matus and Kyle H to be the ones to drop the dead weight baggage, because Marie is nothing but dead weight to this alliance. She does nothing but bring negativity and pettiness to this alliance, and I hope that her exit is swift and comes very painful to her. But yeah, I really do hope that those two at least prosper in this alliance, and the other 3 not so much. I mean, Matthew, I give him props for the things that he did to stay in the house. And Simon, like I said, he's up and down for me, but I just don't see a need for a Marie in the alliance.
I think that the Outsiders will benefit a lot that the other rest of the house hasn't really grouped up. Like, they're all, just making their social bonds, but they're not creating concrete alliances or deals that are going to take them further in the game. And those are the type of bonds or deals that you need for fast forward weeks. Because if you don't know where you're at, you're probably on the block.
Sure. Who surprised you the most from this week, Keith?
Kyle H, hands down. I'm really proud of him. He went from really low because that initial Outsiders call, Marie and Kyle H really ruined it for me. Like, they were the ones that made me think, okay, I can't stand the Outsiders Alliance. They were like, the thing that really pissed me off was like the zombie shooting that happened and the reaction to it. They were like laughing, saying like, oh, do we act like we care? And so that stuff like that, like, take this as a learning experience. Like, you can't say stuff like that, especially in things like Big Brother where you're being watched all the time. And so that really set the tone for the Outsiders to me. But the fact that they were humbled by their nominations. Kyle H was defeated, but had his meltdown, really playing victim, playing it up really big. But then the next day getting over it, wanting to compete, it was a type of veto competition that really like benefited the HOH because you had to put in your nominees. I mean, their veto picks were awful. None of the outsiders came in. And so the fact, sorry, just gonna make sure this is good.
It's
So the fact that Kyle H was able to overcome that adversity, still win the power of veto in a skill-based competition, and use the power of veto for his advantage, I was really, really excited for Kyle H. And you could just see it turn over. Like, his reaction immediately afterwards was like, I'm not going to let this Outsiders Alliance, like, define my stay inside this game. He was in the Outsiders Alliance. He got nominated week 1, and I really hope that he plays for himself.
Definitely. Yeah, it was definitely an interesting week 1. Really excited to see how this week shakes out, especially with the double eviction looming. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we wrap up?
Stay basic.
Stay basic. Thank you guys for watching so much, and make sure you stay tuned for our coverage for week 2 in the double eviction. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.